on, baby. Give me another chance. I know I made some mistake in the past. Burned down a few houses. Caused a few cutouts. But come on, nobody's perfect. Just think of the good times we had. Who brought you that first 100-volt wheel? Remember what it was like to hit 40 miles an hour for the first time on the MSX? And I changed. I promise you're looking at a brand new man. I found God and he spoke to me. He says, Begode, my son, I want you to repent for your sin and build something special. A wheel that rides like no other.
And I want you to call it the EX30.
This is the latest wheel release from Begode. It is better engineered, more powerful, and faster than any other wheel that they have ever built before. And this week, I'm gonna ride it and tell you whether or not this wheel is good enough to earn them a second chance. Roll the intro. First, a quick shout out to Jason at eWheel for sending me this Begode EX30 for review purposes. And I pray to the cutout god to spare me once again for another high performance experimental Begode wheel review without incidents. And speaking of supernatural beings, please hit that like button to please the Google algorithm god. Second of all, I gotta say that this wheel has been the most responsive I have ever seen from Begode. And what I meant by that is that unfortunately Begode has had a reputation for not really listening to their customer over the years. Example which are reoccurring problems like the trolley handles or poor ergonomics that persist from models to model. However, for the EX30, it certainly seems that all the time that Mr. Ling has spent on Facebook responding to angry comments have finally paid off. There's a brand new controller with more capacitors and MOSFET than ever and theoretically offering a much larger headroom, and waterproofing with actual rubber gaskets for openings and a claimed IP rating.
I myself have repeatedly complained about the top heaviness and lack of structural rigidity with their recent models like the Master and the Master Pro, and to Begode's credit, they reinforced the entire wheel chassis, brought back metal battery casing, and lowered the battery mounting height in the hope of increasing stability.
All of that combined with a 134-volt high-performance electrical system paired with the latest iteration of their 4th gen suspension system taken from the very well-reviewed T4. And finally, the real star of the show, which is a brand new C40 high-torque motor capable of a free spin speed of 120 kilometers an hour and a reinforced 3-inch wide rim. And you have a combo that basically covers every single checkbox on any electric unicycle enthusiast's wish list.
And although I would not call the EX30 beautiful, wheels from Motion and Veteran all have more refined designs, there are certain muscular rawness to how this wheel is sculpted that makes it instantly recognizable and will command respect from anyone who knows what it is they're looking at. But seriously, nobody buys a Begode wheel because of how they look.
Alright, enough with the boring spec. It's time to actually ride this wheel to see what it actually feels like. And I'm gonna give Begode the benefit of the doubt and leave the sock pads on, although I kind of don't think I'm going to really like them. But since it also kind of gives the wheel a very distinctive look, let's stick with it for now. This is the very first time I'm riding this wheel, but I'm not expecting it, at least from a feel perspective, to be dramatically different than my Sherman S. The Sherman S runs the same size tire in the same configurations. The differences are going to be subtle when it comes to normal, sensible riding, shall we say. Compared to the Master and the Master Pro, this feels like a much stiffer chassis. I have the suspension pumped up to 150 psi, at least for the pump that was included stock in the kit. It allows you to go all the way up to 300. And at 150 on the streets hitting potholes, it feels fine. It's not as liquidy or smooth as the Sherman S. Oh, I don't have my brake pad in the back. I can't reach it. Yeah. Unlike the V13, this is a wheel that's not difficult at all for anyone to acclimate to if you're used to riding the Sherman or any of the other 18 or 20-inch wheel. But this is definitely not as supple as the hydraulic shocks on the Sherman S. All the bumps on the road is still feeling a little bit sharp. The lightness of this wheel is impressive. Effortless, similar to the Master, but has none of the top heaviness that comes with that wheel's battery configuration. Very stable. This is great. I really don't like these pads at all. Now I'm regretting the fact that I didn't swap the pads right from the get-go. Then the wheel looks terrible and naked, right?
So Begode wheels tend to feel just a bit more responsive and zippy, mostly because of their firmware. It is the reason why so many hardcore fans would never consider riding anything else. And the good news is that the EX30 very much ride like a classic Begode, even more so than some of their more recent releases. And the reason why is that
the mounting height of the battery really has a huge impact on ride dynamic. I like the lower center of gravity. This is a solid choice on the part of Begode. So ergonomically, this wheel still needs a lot of improvement. I'm also suspecting that this may be because of the way the pads are configured. They're just very chunky. Feels like it's an intentional design thing, wanting to make this wheel feel a little bit beefier.
But then again, because of their mostly modular design, for anyone who's used to riding any of the more recent Begode wheels, the EX30 is going to feel very familiar. I roll on, but there aren't really a lot to say. At lower speed, the EX30 rides competently and feel reasonably light and have solid braking and acceleration, but not much else. But lower speed isn't what the EX30 is really designed for.
I think in many ways the EX30 is actually more of a direct competitor to the veteran Sherman S than even the Commander Pro. Whether or not you're looking at design or engineering, you really get the sense that this wheel represents the best of the Begode engineering at this moment in time, starting with 4 metal encased battery pack in equal distribution on both sides of the wheel, totaling 3600 watt-hour, same as the Sherman Pro but at 134 volt. But surprisingly, unlike the 134 volt Master, the range actually seems solid. I did 54 miles on this wheel and it's still at 40%, which means that it's reasonable for you to get roughly 70 to 80 miles out of this wheel even when you ride it hard. It does weigh 100 pounds, and just like the Sherman S, it's also difficult to carry. But thankfully, Begode also included a pair of handles front and back. They are a little bit on the thin side, but does allow you to more easily grab and hold on to this wheel. And the trolley handle is a little bit stronger, but remains still somewhat rickety. And when you land hard, still have the tendency to pop out. But, you know, it is workable and decently balanced. Never ever try to carry the wheel with it. The built-in seat is surprisingly comfortable, and the new and improved LCD is much more legible and better waterproof. And there is a built-in kickstand that kind of works. Not bad.
None of that probably sound like something you should use to describe a product that costs as much as the EX30 does, but this being Begode and the round of high-performance electric unicycle,
it's a little bit like complaining about poor cargo capacity on a Ferrari. Those things, unfortunately, just doesn't seem to be on Begode's priority list. We're still missing a true smart BMS with individual cell tracking to reduce the likelihood of battery fire, or a more advanced feature like the redundant Hall sensor sensor that Emotion add to the motor of the V13 to reduce the likelihood of random cutout.
Instead, what you get is a wheel that is entirely focused on performances, which is one area where Begode still holds a lead with a 134 volt system. And it's time to push this wheel to the limit and see what it can do. But before we do that, there is something we have to do first.
I've tried. I really tried. I stuck with the stock pads and the stock pedals all weekend. I just can't ride this wheel like this. I can't get performance out of it. I can't brake effectively. I don't have enough grip on the pedals. It's just not enjoyable. And check out what I'm gonna swap in for the stock pedals. These nice red E-Ride pedals. They're gonna give me more grip and better leverage on cranking this wheel. All right, some quick thought about this new version of the Begode pedals. They are certainly very light because of the size of the opening they have. Almost 2/3 or half of the weight of the E-Ride pedals. I am a little bit skeptical as to their strength. With less material and less weight, that is an advantage, but also I suspect that it's going to be easier to crack these pedals than something a little bit beefier like that.
Now that's settled, let's see what the EX can do. And for that, we'll need a spot with a bit more room. It's a simple test. How long does it take for the EX30 to get to 50 miles per hour? Keep in mind that skill is a large component to the performance of an electric unicycle, and I don't claim to be a fast rider, and I have no doubt that with practice, someone could better my time here. But as you can see, even with all that caveats, the EX30 is mind-blowingly fast. I also did multiple braking tests from 40 miles per hour without pulling on the handle, since in an emergency situation you're probably not going to find it, and was able to come to a complete stop in 300 feet. Next, I'm going to conduct what I'm going to refer to as the delinquent test, which is exactly how high the speed you can achieve on a single block in a residential area, specifically on the street in front of your parents' house. If you're starting to think that the speed of the EX30 has completely gone to my head, you're probably right.
And let me just start by saying, if you're getting the EX30, get rid of the stock pad. Seriously, don't let a $2 piece of rubber get in the way of you enjoying the 90% of its capability. And if you're concerned with the way this wheel look without the stock pads, then you really shouldn't be getting a Begode wheel in the first place. Seriously, buy a V13 if that's what you're after. Starting out in Queens today and gonna work our way into Manhattan. This is Queens Boulevard, so we'll be able to actually push the speed a little bit, which should be interesting. The only way for getting more stability at speed has been to increase wheel size. That is why the V13 is a 22-inch wheel. Larger wheel, heavier motor, more gyroscopic stability at speed means that you can go faster and not worry about wobbles or what have you, and that is certainly true with the V13. However, the problem is that it is still a rather top-heavy wheel. Problem that is really difficult to solve for suspension electric unicycle, because the amount of travel required by a suspension system inevitably means that the frame has to be taller than the wheel itself. Plus, the need to provide more pedal clearances means that the whole assembly, battery included, start to move upward. And as much as I have thought about and theorized the negative impact of having a taller center of gravity, it's really hard for us to actually tell the implications because there were no alternative. Every single suspension wheel has a taller profile and a taller battery mounting, and as a result, a taller center of gravity. And the EX30 is the very first wheel that bucked that trend. And it's a revelation when you ride this wheel of the advantage that comes from having a lower center of gravity. And this is really traditionally how an electric unicycle feel. And by that I mean a non-suspension electric unicycle, because without suspension, naturally their center of gravity is lower, the case is smaller, and all of that. And admittingly, it is kind of a weird setup. There's this cage that sits between the top of the wheel where the controller is and the battery pack. And I can see why companies like InMotion and Hsiang really avoided a design like this. And along with moving the whole wheel assembly and battery pack up, you also gain pedal height, which everyone considered to be a good thing. And this is the thing about the experimental nature of electric unicycle. Other than the very basic of self-balancing control, there's really not a lot of understanding when it comes to the dynamic of a unicycle at speed. Until recently, there is no such a thing as a 50 miles per hour unicycle. And so the only way for us to be able to tell whether or not shifting the battery weight further down, if one of the company actually build a model with a lower battery mounting height. And that is really the primary strength of Begode, because they utilize a modular system when it comes to putting their wheels together. They're able to iterate very quickly and swap out components and experiment with different form factor and so on. And the track record of Begode is spotty for the same reason. Some models and experimentation pans out like the Master, while others don't quite work out. It's amazing how quickly you can get this wheel up to 40 miles per hour. Right there, we're already at 40. It's absolutely insane. And the impressive thing is how stable it is at speed. Like 42. A 19-inch wheel just don't have business being this stable. I think people often discount the role that firmware has when it comes to wheel acceleration and power. The V13 has just as much power, I think, as the EX30, but the firmware is really quite sluggish. It doesn't let you access that power as quickly as this wheel does. No one can compare with a Begode when it comes to just the sense of immediacy when it comes to acceleration. This wheel just like go. Like I am not even tapping like 30% of what this wheel is capable of. Let's talk about the suspension. It is, shall we say, improved as compared to the suspension on the Master or the Master Pro. The overall increased frame stiffness means that not only is it able to absorb hits more effectively, there's also less general wheel movement coming from taking a hit with the suspension and its travel. However, it just simply cannot compare to the hydraulic shocks on the Sherman S. It's either too soft when you're riding faster and hitting bumps, or it's too hard when you're riding at slower speed and hitting these smaller bumps. It just doesn't have that same level of suppleness that the hydraulic shock on the Sherman S gives you. And I keep coming back to this lower battery mounting height because it just makes such a huge difference when it comes to ride quality. And it's just the thing that you notice constantly when you ride this wheel. Even when it starts to wobble, like under like intense braking force, very easy to self-correct. And this motor, let me just say, this incredible motor. Man, I have never experienced this much acceleration on anything else, including the Master. And this is much heavier, sure, but the power of this motor completely negate any weight differences. Not only do I suspect that it has more power, the wider contact patch means that you're going to have much better torque transfer to the pavement itself. Oh man, this is just absolutely on a whole different level.
But there are some downsides. The lower battery height means that you can forget about riding the EX30 off-road or even just hopping a particularly tall curb. And you cannot ride stairs either, since the rear battery bracket is so low that it will strike the treads and either damage public properties or worse, flip the wheel and dump you down the stairs. But that isn't what the EX30 is designed for. Think of it as the Honda Civic Type R of the electric unicycle world, an unassuming street racer that is capable of insane speed and performances but have the ground clearances of a Catholic nun. And despite its many shortcomings, I really think that this is the most compelling Begode wheels I have ridden in recent years. So much so that it makes me question my choice of Sherman S. So what do you think? Are you willing to re-embrace Begode and forgive and forget? Oh look, he's sorry! Or is it too little and too late? Well, that is what the comment section below is for. And you know what? Once again, I ramble on too long and somehow managed to waste another 25 minutes of your life, but I hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to my supporter on Patreon. Please check out the link in the video description below if you enjoy and like to support my work. And as always, as much as we all love Electric Unicycle, the only way for us to get better wheels is to grow as a community. So tell your friend, teach them how to ride and get them hooked. Until the next video, thank you.
Go,